Hi, welcome to this week's video. My name's Ruth, and if you are new to my channel, it's really lovely to have you here. And as December is upon us and we are nearly in the Advent season, I want to talk in this week's video all about Christmas, Christmas stress, Christmas overload, dealing with family and social situations and all of these kind of things that come up in this month of December that can overwhelm us. And what I want to do is I want to share with you my thoughts and how I think that we can all deal with and survive this season in the best way, and also as well to give you some tips and tools that may help you as you navigate spending a lot more time in larger groups, social situations, and potentially with difficult family members. So that's what we're going to dig into in today's video. And I think it's important to say that I've been speaking to a lot of people recently, and Christmas can feel really overwhelming. It's a time when we are fed this cookie cutter, perfect gingerbread house image of what Christmas should look like, and like happy family times and romantic relationships and all of those different things that we see played out in Christmas films and Christmas adverts. And so if things in our life aren't looking like that, then it can put us under a lot of extra stress and strain on top of all of the normal stresses and strains that we're under all year round. So it's important just to kind of, if possible, take a step back and realise that there's a lot of marketing out that goes on at Christmas, and it's not, in most likelihood, going to live up to those expectations all through the festive season. There might be moments, perfect, blissful, happy moments, but from my experience of spending time with family and friends at Christmas, there may also be explosive arguments, unhappiness, depression, lots of things that have been simmering all year can erupt over Christmas. And there's no surprise that January is a prime time for people to kind of go to their doctor saying that they're anxious, they're depressed, divorce rates go up after Christmas. So it really isn't this perfect holiday season picture postcard that we sometimes get portrayed. So that's really important to remember. And spending time with family and friends, but in particular family, it's a heightened time where we may be spending a lot more time with those people than we do the rest of the year. And I think that Ram Dass, the spiritual leader, sums it up best when he says to people that would follow his principles, if you think you're enlightened, go and spend a week with your family. So he's basically describing Christmas and the idea that we can think that we are all evolved and we've got all of our shit together, and then we can be plunged back into that family dynamic and all of that stuff goes out of the window. So it can be really difficult because we structure our lives to spend time with the people we want to spend time with. If we want to be far away from family and that's the way we've made our life, then Christmas can often be really challenging because we're all of a sudden back into that family dynamic that we grew up with. And it can be really tough because as much work as we've done to become the sorts of people that we want to be, when we are put back into that situation with parents, with siblings, all of those old patterns and those old traits that we kind of evolved to have certain habits and patterns of behaviour to find our place in the family. So for example, like I grew up with 3 sisters, 1 brother, a dog, a mum, a dad and a grandma, and we were all living together. So we were quite a big, in modern standards, we were a big family unit. And it was in some ways really difficult for me as the baby of the family to find my place. So I became the little performer and the little smiler. And that is the people pleaser, performative person that I even today feel like I step back into when I'm in my family and we're all competing for attention and space, and we all fall back into those familiar patterns, and that can cause real issues, especially in something as intensive and concentrated as Christmas together with lots of other extended family. So I would say that it's something to just be very aware of, is like, what is your role within your family? And if there are personality traits and patterns of behaviour that play out when you are with your family, just to be mindful that Christmas is a time when it's going to be difficult to keep all of those things inside. And if you do fall back into old patterns, then not to be too hard on yourself, not to beat yourself up about it. Journal, reflect, talk to friends or people that are in your wider circle that you can trust, and just know that it doesn't mean that you've lost yourself, but it's very challenging, like Ram Dass says, to remain in an enlightened state or in your preferred state when you are plunged back in to that family dynamic. And particularly in our country at the moment, there are lots of people under incredible stress. There is a high amount of division. We're having a general election in December, just before Christmas, and Brexit's all still up in the air. And I don't want to bring all of those political and societal kind of dilemmas into these videos, but it's important to realise that all of that external stuff that's going on in society is going to affect how people feel. And I think that there's a lot of division, there's a sense of division amongst people, and there's a lot of anger and not much tolerance towards other people's opinions. So if you are pro-Brexit or anti-Brexit, asking yourself, like, am I really being tolerant of other people's views or curious about why people think the things that they think, or am I just getting angry and telling them that they're wrong? So this is going to play out over Christmas, whether it's talking about politics, talking about Brexit, talking about what you believe in, whether you're a vegan or you eat meat, or whether you believe in, all different sorts of ways that we live our lives. People come together and clash at Christmas because we're all put together in this hotbed. And if we have different views and people have had a few drinks, which tends to happen over Christmas, it can become a time that is ripe for arguments and explosions, and not necessarily listening to each other and giving each other empathy. So if you can over Christmas, I really like to try and think of the hygee. I really hope I've said that right. People say like hygee. I'm sure it's hygee. So it's this sort of Danish way of, I think it originates in Denmark. I may be wrong on that. I know it's very Scandi. This idea of comfort and security and warmth, and this feeling that we can, as groups and in our homes and in the choices that we make of what we eat and the environment, the kind of feeling that we can cultivate within ourselves and within our wider environment. So it's a really beautiful way that goes beyond like comfy socks and nice lighting. It goes much deeper into how we interact in groups. And in hygge philosophy, the idea is that when we come together in a group, that we try as much as we can to create a sense of intimacy, create a sense of trust and security within that group, so that we aren't looking at our differences and we're not being spiky and we are not trying to have difficult conversations. There are times and places to have difficult conversations with friends, with family, with the wider world. But times like Christmas and sacred times where we are coming together to share our abundance of food, which, we are so lucky to have. Not everyone in this country that I live in has it, especially around the world, people don't have it. So if you are lucky enough to be having an abundance of food and somewhere safe and secure to celebrate Christmas, to really honour that and to think about how we can look at what we've got in common with our families. So as Peter Kay would say, you know, even Uncle Knobhead, or, you know, the uncle that you disagree with on everything and have completely different views, who you might be forced to spend Christmas with. It could be an uncle, it could be a parent, it could be a sibling. You know, there are differences, but can we take that time to, even if they are goading us and keep bringing up the differences, can we keep bringing it back to something that we've got in common, a connection, and appreciating the good things about that person as much as we can. So that's the hygge sort of philosophy on how we can cultivate spaces where we can just relax, we can trust, we can feel like we're appreciating the best of each other. So that's kind of a nice outlook to think about, is not looking at differences, not looking at divisions, looking at what brings us together, all of the good points of those people, even if they're driving us mental over the Christmas dinner and sitting in the living room with them for hours watching Christmas TV, is just to kind of have that in mind as a goal. And if you slip up and you do experience, you know, anger and hostility and arguments, it's not the end of the world. We are all human. Nobody is perfect. No one's sailing through Christmas feeling like none of this stuff's going to come up for them. So just knowing that you are not alone, but there are little practices that we can do to help us cultivate more empathy and more kindness and more tolerance for people that we might really not agree with. And, you know, there's loads of things that can come up around Christmas, whether that's about, you know, your sexual preferences or what you like to eat or what you believe in politically. It's a minefield, and it's just really, for me, the way I see it is it's a matter of really being kind to yourself. And if you can, like taking some time out, going out into nature. Like I always like on Boxing Day, after a heavy Christmas day of being with everyone and eating tons and tons of food and sitting and festering in the house watching telly and being a slob, which I love too. That's great fun. It's like on Boxing Day, getting out, going for a long walk with family, which is really nice, and it cultivates a different sort of feel with each other when we're walking and we're out in nature. I think that it can sometimes help to ease the tensions that can build up. And if you are struggling with feeling overwhelmed around sort of like money pressures and feeling like you've got to try and create this perfect Christmas, then really just to take a step back if you can and ask yourself the question, is this one day worth me getting into debt? Is this one day worth me being in tears about the fact that I can't have this picture perfect Christmas and I've got these issues in my life that aren't just going to magically disappear at Christmas? So really being kind to yourself and recognising that it is just a day, and that gifts are not the thing that makes Christmas special. Like, your presence is the greatest present. So really being present and being kind to yourself and to others, and not worrying so much about getting the perfect gifts, because let's face it, we're all bombarded with all of that, and it's nice to open gifts, but it's much nicer to be with people and have a really connected time where we feel like we're getting on and we're creating a nice atmosphere to be together. So they're the kind of key things that I wanted to talk around about how to cope with Christmas, and to realise that it will not last forever. If you find Christmas hell and you're going home and you're spending time with friends and family, it's bringing up all the stuff that you feel like you're miserable about, just to think it really is just this construct. It's a construct, it's another day, it's another time period, just like any other time period. And it's okay to feel sad. and feel like you are missing some things in your life if that's coming up for you. And just to know that much more now people talk about those things and express them. And it's like, can you talk to some friends and reach out on messages if you're away from your normal location, and check in with people and maybe plan some stuff for like New Year time, early on in January, where you can get grounded and get back to the people that make you feel at your best and accept you for who you are if your family aren't really giving you that. And one last thing that I wanted to mention was a really good book that I read called John Bradshaw on the Family. So John Bradshaw does a lot of work around family dynamics and healing trauma. And he talks a lot in the book on the family, which I'll post a link to below, about how complex our family dynamics are. And all of our patterns and our triggers tend to come from those core relationships from early on in our life. So our caregivers, our parents, our siblings, whoever we lived with in the household. And just knowing that those things run really, really deep, and they are likely to come up at times of overwhelm and pressure. So Christmas is the perfect storm for those things to come up. So if you want to ask for a gift, maybe John Bradshaw on the Family might be a good book, or it might be worth you putting it on your wish list or getting that so you can read it over Christmas and stay sane amongst the madness. And I really hope this video has helped in some way. Know that you're not alone. Comment me below if you've got any tips about how you find surviving Christmas with family and stuff. We can all support each other. One last thing as well is on the food thing that I mentioned. Like, if you eat a different diet, this is so much more common now. Like, I don't have gluten, and I've got friends that are vegan, vegetarian. They might be going to like a house where it's going to be full of meat, and you don't want to feel the odd one out. You don't want to be a pain. So like, just taking offerings, making a cake. Like, I'm going to make gluten-free brownies. I will take things with me to places that everyone can enjoy. It's not like I'm bringing an exclusive food for me. I'm bringing things that everyone can share with me, and I'm not going to feel left out. So I'm offering something, and I'm also making sure that I'm not going to be hungry when the desserts all come out and I can't have them. So that was one last tip. Enjoy the festive season. I will be back next week with another video for you guys, and thanks for watching. All right, bye.